Alright, anybody have any last second questions? Still no Jude, or, So in the previous session, Elined met with Ragna to discuss the recent going on and her plans moving forward, dealing with Basileus and Norwick. She also met with her contact Rothschild in the Tower Church to get his advising before ultimately returning to London with perhaps some new ideas and intending to discuss this with Nicholas more. While this was going on, Robert was in the far north, beyond Scotland, with his new ghoul and sacrifice, Albert Desjardins. And the two of them faced extreme peril, nearing calamity, as Robert stretched himself to his limits, exhausted of vitae and penniless, mentally spent, exposed to the rising sun. And he barely kept his beast at bay long enough to negotiate with this tribe whom he did not speak the language of. Finally, scraping together enough cover for a couple days and building a friendship with them, he departed reinvigorated. And now on this night in the latter half of August 1456, we return to the western coast of the southern Orkney Island. We open to the scene of Robert walking on foot. It is late into the evening, very late. There may be a couple hours before dawn. Albert paces behind you, Robert. The crashing of the tide against the rock has become loud. The wind rips fast this close to shore. It has been a long trek from the pagan village without your horse. And now you see you have surely arrived, as there could be no other sea stag you see which fits the description beyond what you see in front of you. There is a sheer cliff drop in front of you with a rocky and watery chasm about 500 feet below as you face the ocean. And about 200 feet out from this cliff edge is the sea stack which rises up, a thick column of jagged stone that shoots out of the ocean coastline to a height that almost reaches you. If you had rope and wood, you might be able to build a bridge to it, but the treacherous tidal waves crashing against the brutal rock formations below look dangerous even to your undead body. So what do we see when we turn to Robert?
Robert is clearly gauging the situation, trying to decide how best to proceed and safely get both him and his ghoul onto this stone.
This is allegedly where you are to perform the rite to summon the Einherjar. You require fresh blood, although you were never elaborated on how fresh exactly, or the specifics. Albert looks at the crashing shores below you with some fear. You say there's treasure here?
Yes, that there is.
Well, had I not seen you survive such perils as the previous nights, I might question your sanity, but I think God has placed me with you for a reason. He nods a couple times.
Indeed. What we seek will not be easy to get to, but I'll think of something. In the meantime, we'll set up camp at the cave that was mentioned.
He kind of looks left and right and seems to be looking around. I do not see the cave that was spoken of.
Robert will begin wandering in the direction that he was told it should be in. It should be somewhere around here. Keep your eyes peeled.
He looks carefully around along the coastline up and down. It is quite dark and difficult to see. Although again, there is that faint hint of light in the sky as the blue becomes more clear against the darkness just before dawn. Make a perception survival roll.
Difficulty?
I'm gonna make this standard difficulty, and I'm gonna gift you a dot of survival after your last adventure, just because I don't see how you couldn't have at least one dot of survival after having survived all of that.
Fair enough.
Trial by fire. Standard difficulty. Two successes. You look around the general direction that these pagans were describing to you, this cave, and it's difficult because you didn't really speak the language, and so you know they were trying to describe something that didn't make any sense with the way they were drawing things until you look at this coastline from a different perspective. And you notice, looking down at near the bottom of the ridge where the water and the tides come crashing against the rock, you see an inlet, a kind of curving in of the stone where it looks like it doesn't meet pure rock wall. There's certainly considerable space there where the water doesn't quite reach. It's maybe 30 feet above the tide.
Ah, there it is.
Albert turns and looks down there. We have to climb down this rock wall.
Robert will look for a different approach if such a thing is possible, but go ahead.
With your two successes, I'll let that roll. There's no easy way down. It's going to be a test of your balance no matter what. Although there are enough handholds on these rocks that you probably could climb down to there if you were careful. Although failure could be devastating.
Is there a way to perhaps use some rope or something to make a safer descent?
You think so? Did you bring rope?
Well, he did procure a lot of supplies specifically in mind for
That's
climbing
true.
a
You did.
sea stack.
That is very true. So I will say you do have some rope for this.
I'll find a sturdy place to tie down rope and begin seeking a way to get both of them down there safely.
Alright, give me a wit survival. Difficulty 7 to set up a makeshift belay system. You could harness this rope to secure yourself as you climb down. 3 successes. At least.
And the only specialty would be changes in strategies.
I'm going to say no for that, but 3 is a complete success. You find a sturdy boulder that's kind of built into the ridge. It hooks really nicely, and you find that the rope is perfect for this. So you tie it up fairly well, and you think you have a good enough trajectory that this will considerably help you in climbing down to this darkness where the ridge and it caves in on itself, or opens in. I'll just need a Dex Athletics, and since you did so well with that rope, I'll give you difficulty 5.
Okay.
That makes things a lot safer. Not a botch. It might have been without the rope, though. And so you note that it's really only because of this rope that you did not go falling to the sharp, jagged rocks below. As you start to climb down and you misjudge how damp some of the stones are just from the sea breeze, and you lose your hand, and you start to fall, but the rope catches you. So you don't really fall to a watery death, but I will let you try again, since the rope did save you. You're not in as good of a position. You're kind of, 50 feet down. You can try again at a difficulty 6 this time.
Okay.
Alright, 3 successes. With a little bit more caution and making use of the rope, you find another path back to this downward slope, using the handholds of the rock formations and looking for footholds as you go down. It takes you about 15 minutes of climbing slowly before you reach what you couldn't see before, and you see that there is a cave here. The tribespeople were correct. It seems to be a place where the ridge of this coastline opens up. Although it doesn't seem to be vulnerable to high or low tide, it is very exposed to the elements, and it goes in for at least deep enough that you can't quite see everything in there. The mouth of the opening of this cave is very large. It's like 60 feet wide and 50 feet tall. It's a large opening to this cave, although you can't see really what's in it beyond that because of the light.
Well, Robert will next attempt to escort his ghoul. Well, yeah, not really escort, but, try to see what we can do to help him, make sure he comes down safe, maybe encourage him.
Okay. Yeah, Albert looks really frightened, especially after seeing you almost fall. And you can tell looking up, it's very hard to see all the way up, but the rope moves as though being manipulated by somebody above. You can't really see him from your position, given the angle, but we'll see how he does. Oh, he didn't botch either, but he didn't succeed either. You don't really know what's going on up there, but a few pieces of rock and debris come kind of flying down along with some dust.
Go slowly now, and surely you will make it.
This close to the crashing of the water, you have to yell pretty loud to hear or to say anything. You
Then
can't.
he'll yell it.
Yeah, you definitely can't hear him. Maybe he heard you. After 20 minutes or so, you do start to hear the sound of heavy breathing and panting and boots on rock movement above you, and the rope moving more frantically as you see Albert appear just over the lip of this cave entrance, and it kind of drops down. Ugh. Good God. I surely hope this treasure's worth it. Robert.
Well done, Albert. That we shall see.
Thank Christ for that rope. I should surely have fallen. He kind of looks over the edge into the water.
It was very good we prepared.
He kind of squints his eyes looking into the cave. Have you explored? Is there shelter in here? Have they been here before? The pagans?
Assuming they know of it, perhaps. I did not go in deep enough. I was waiting for you. Now is a good time to seek.
I suppose we shouldn't have to worry much about bears or wolves in here. He offers a weak smile as he gets out some supplies and looks like he's trying to set up a lantern. He's kind of has this large satchel of supplies and takes out a lantern, unfolds some kindling, and gets the lantern going.
Well, while he's doing that, Robert will keep his distance and heighten his senses as he looks around the cave.
Okay. The two of you start to advance into the cave, into this very large opening that gets very dark very quickly. Thankfully, with the preparations you made and this lantern still being intact, Albert is able to illuminate the way forward, and you find that it does close and narrow quickly. And you pass into a much smaller channel that's maybe only a few feet wide and quite short. You almost have to duck as you follow Albert in. The two of you exit out of this small channel into another open space that must be quite large, as the lantern's light doesn't reach any walls to reflect. And he kind of stops as the two of you realize that this must be fairly large if that lantern isn't illuminating very much. Do you suppose more could be here? More pagans, I mean.
Within here. Well, I would think not likely, but I suppose nothing is impossible.
Make a perception alertness roll. Difficulty is going to be 8.
Okay.
And if you have your senses heightened, you can decrease it by your aspects.
Good, good.
One success. You notice in the distance, 50 feet away or so, it's very dark. But using what little light you have from this lantern, there is some movement along the ground. And you can hear the shuffle of something. It takes a few more moments before Albert seems to notice this as well. It seems to be advancing to you.
Robert will motion for Albert to be quiet and still as he looks towards what the sound is coming from. Is he able to... if it's moving closer, does he get a chance to see it?
As it gets closer with your heightened senses, it looks like the form of a body crawling almost on all fours. It's certainly not upright. It's not very fast either.
Robert will attempt to aura read it.
All right.
I don't have the roll on hand.
I have it. Give me a perception empathy, difficulty 7. What's your specialty? Do you have a specialty?
Yeah, empathy, it would be, truths.
Truths?
Mm-hmm.
Suppose I'll give that to you. I'll turn 1 success into 3, which is far more useful. You see... Let's see here. It's... You see solid colors of orange and silver. Let's see. 3 successes, color patterns. It's not bright or pale, it's quite mundane, like those of most kind. But mostly you see the hues of sadness and fear.
Okay. Robert will begin approaching slowly, and he'll speak out. Who goes there?
You don't immediately get a response, but as you get closer, and this person you see is getting closer, you can see it looks like a woman that's crawling to you. She looks ragged and her clothes are badly torn and dirty. She presses up to look to you, and you can see a face that looks very malnourished. Her lips are very dry, and she reaches her hand out to you. Food? Do you have any food?
What language is she speaking?
She's speaking French.
Um, Robert will ask Albert, "Do we still have food?" And he'll take off his cloak and cover this woman.
And Albert sets to opening up his pack and pulling out some shreds of bread and his flask of water. The woman reaches out greedily when it's offered and drinks from the water so desperately that some of it starts to spill a little bit.
Robert patiently waits for her to recover before asking her questions. Who are you? How have you come to be here?
She turns away from finishing the last of the bread and setting the flask down, finally regaining some composure. And you can see that despite the clear wear on her face and the dirt and the malnourishment, she must be fairly young. And she looks to you and her eyes widen. And she drops the flask. You have returned. To finish yourself, then? Is that why you're here?
Were you kept here? A bit of rage. A bit of rage flashes across Robert's eyes as he says this. And he'll gauge the woman, assuming she's a nun.
Looking over her, the clothes are very tattered, but it is, or perhaps was, a habit. You can see tears stream down and make clear lines in her dirty and malnourished face. You are the one who delivered us to the devil. Is this hell? Have I faded, and now greeted by devils again? And she looks around. Surely this is hell.
Life is still within you. I have not come to finish you off. What of the fate of your others? Your sisters?
And she looks at you with rage and anguish, tears slowly streaming down her face. Some yet persist. Though they wish for death, they would be denied God's... No, they cannot do it. None of us can. But you can release us. You can end this nightmare before he comes back.
Do you not wish to escape?
Escape? Out there?
To see the light once more?
We cannot make the climb. We cannot swim. There is no escape for us. He will find us. Some tried. We have only grown weaker since then. We wish only now for quick deaths.
When did he last leave?
How could you have done this to us? Monster. She starts to crawl backwards away from you.
I didn't think what he would do to you.
You cared not what he would do to us.
I thought of nothing more than...
Yourself.
You have me there. But I still have plenty of strength to at least attempt to rescue you all, if you so desire.
She stares at you wide-eyed, blinking, as though uncertain. You can see from here she's trembling. Make a perception empathy roll, standard difficulty on her. Two successes. You see the look of a defeated animal, not so much a person. It was weeks ago that you first came and left and made this trade. You think in that time that this woman has been broken.
Has he fed any of you?
Scarcely little.
What has he fed you?
Raw dead creatures. When he remembers. And then he takes us. He takes everything. And then leaves the bodies. I have smelled the dead, putrid corpse of my Mother Superior for weeks now. I wake and I know not if it is night or day. I know only hell, and I wish for only death.
Can you lead me to the others?
Her face pains as she pauses and then nods. You can see she is able to barely walk. It's more of a hobble. Albert is very quiet and serious, a very grim expression on his face. And the two of you follow her to a wall of this cave, quite some distance from the entrance. And as you get close, you smell before you can see several of the bodies. And again, you see what look like torn and old ragged habits of other nuns, including the Mother Superior. Their bodies are desiccated and drained dry. There are a few other nuns you see leaned up against walls. You can't tell if they're dead or sleeping, or if they simply don't have the energy to move.
How many?
Including this woman, 3 others.
Great. Well, Robert will next ask, when did he last leave? Can you estimate at all?
Days or nights ago, I have not had the strength to reach the opening in some time. She kind of shakes her head, uncertain.
Morning will come soon. And after that period, when night falls again, I will rescue you all.
So you say. She crawls against the wall, huddling up with the cloak that was given to her and the ragged habit. And Albert kind of whispers in your ear, "Robert, we cannot save them. We barely got down here ourselves. Getting out will be even harder. How can we do that? I have not the strength to carry any of them." I know not how they brought down here.
Neither do I, but I do know it is possible to save at least 3 of them.
If this is God's work, I suppose.
What supplies remain?
I have some food from the camp. I had expected perhaps we would stop by there again. A few days at most, and that was just for me. Notice you do not take supplies.
Spread what little you can. They need only a little sustenance.
He looks very uncertain at that, very reluctant, but nods after a moment. And he sets about tending to the nuns.
Set up watch. I don't expect our quarry to come during the day, but be aware. If we see the one that has done this to them, surely we will slay him.
What did she mean that you did this?
I did not expect to be deceived the way I was. Yeah.
Did you help this occur?
in a way. There was a hungry man who said he needed food. I had none to spare, but I figured from the cathedral, surely there would be those that could help him.
Make a manipulation subterfuge roll. Try and mince words here.
Alright.
Standard difficulty.
You always have my blood? Standard?
I made it easier because he has your blood.
Ah, okay.
4 successes is more than enough in any case. Oh, a tragic end. Perhaps we can do something. And he seems acceptable with that answer and continues helping with the nuns.
Do I start to feel the sleep approaching me anytime soon?
Not yet, but you anticipate it within the next hour.
Next hour? Okay. So while Albert is setting up camp, he'll feed blood to 3 of them that are sleeping. Just to give them enough strength to at least make it so they don't perish while their planned escape is happening.
Alright. And what's that gonna bring you down to?
A blood point each. That's gonna bring me down to... It's gonna bring me down to 5.
And that's before rising again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well... They're all asleep, right?
They're either asleep or they're so out of it from frailty and weakness that you think whatever they experience just be a fevered dream anyway.
Robert will at least heighten his senses and see who has the least vitality among them.
Do you have any medicine?
No. I mean, he's just gonna compare heartbeats.
Okay. Give me a perception alertness. Difficulty is going to be 9 before Auspex. If that's all you're listening for.
Yep, that's it.
Alright, 2 successes. The woman you spoke to, the woman who crawled up to you, seems to have the strongest heartbeat. Of the 3 remaining, they all have slower heartbeats, and one of them is quite slow. It seems very faint. This is one of the women you think was completely asleep. She almost appeared dead to you when you first came. Leaned up against the cave wall.
Robert's going to... He's going to perform the kiss on her and take 2 blood points. Listening closely as he does. Oh, yeah, we'll say 3. Just 3.
So from the weakest woman,
Yeah.
you're gonna take 3 blood points?
Uh-huh.
Alright. Yeah, the heart slows to silence as you take the third blood point, and you don't sense anything coming from this woman after that. I don't think your humanity is high enough to concern yourself with that, though. I'm just checking. Because this was very intentional. You listened to hear who was on the verge of death to deliver that death.
Yep.
So, this would still be outright murder, or possibly savored exsanguination, or outright exsanguination as it was. You are currently at 3, so it's right on the cusp. So give me a conscience roll difficulty 6, since there is no difference between the level of the sin and the level of your humanity.
Okay.
2 successes. You do have remorse still, at least for this woman and what you've done. Maybe she would have survived. Maybe if you had given her some blood, she would have seen many more days coming out of this cave that are no longer there.
And again, none of this would have happened if Robert didn't deliver them into Sigurd's hands.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That crosses your mind too. Alright, so Robert will maintain watch for what remains of the night.
He'll feed 3 blood to the remaining point each, to the remaining nuns.
Okay. Alright.
That was just to keep him from going into a blood frenzy on them as he tries to rescue them. It's probably not enough to rescue them all. Would it be another check if Robert, tried to completely drain this woman since she's already dead?
To drain her of more of her blood?
Yeah. Vitae.
It wouldn't be... Oh, another humanity check?
Yeah.
No, it would not be another humanity check. There's no double
Alright,
jeopardy.
then. Since she's dying, then, or dead, he's gonna take whatever he can to help fuel his body so that he can actually rescue these survivors.
Alright, so you begin to slake yourself on the corpse of this recently dead woman. Already, the warmth from her body, whatever was there, is quickly dissipating. You can tell that although technically she didn't have any blood loss, she is so malnourished, the vitae in life, or the vitae within, has very little life within it. And so I'm going to say you are not able to get more than another 2 points of actual vitae from what remains within this body.
Okay.
She's been completely drained of life. Much like her other sisters not very far away. She takes on a very similar form, although not quite as desiccated. And for now, we will fade the scene on the side of Robert next to this corpse, watching for the night. We will check in with another Canite. Singen. You return to London after your talks. The intention of discussing this further with Nicholas Ridley. And actually, let's catch up with Nicholas to see what he's been up to, as Ellen has been gone for, maybe a couple weeks. And the last time we saw Nicholas, he had been delving into the unknown with this tome. What were his plans following that?
When he gets as far as he can get with the book, and not being an occultist, there's probably a limit to how far he will go. He will actually wait for one or the other of the Gauntlet members to arrive.
Right. You do have to wait a couple weeks before Elined returns to the manor. The sound of Gertrude suddenly becoming more excited echoes throughout the halls, and looking out on the foyer, you see that indeed the Gauntlet Lord has returned. And Gertrude steps away from the foyer to set aside, putting away her belongings from Elined's travels. And Elined, you also see looking up from the entrance of your home, that looks like Nicholas is looking down.
I trust the times haven't been too hard on you.
Not physically, in any case. It has been a long while since you walked these hallowed halls. Welcome back, Elined.
It is good to be back.
Do you need any assistance bringing in your belongings?
No, I've already got that taken care of. However, there is something I could use your assistance on.
I am, of course, at your service.
In order to get things to progress so things can move forward with the plans I was set to do, I require both the people and the nobles on my side. Of course, I am not asking you to go into any court or anything like that of the more. Nothing so simple. It is more along the lines of, I am quite skilled with poetry. I was looking for your insight as far as your knowledge of the mind to see if you can give me any tips as far as mentally manipulating them with said words.
You have come to the right place. Why don't we discuss this further inside?
She will head inside.
Alright, the home is much as you left it. There are a few staff here still cleaning things. It's relatively early in the evening tonight.
Nicholas will wait for Elined in the hall.
As she goes up to him, I have already completed one and had that distributed, but one poem does not a change in public make.
If indeed any poems could be said to have that power.
No, if one is made with enough precision, I'm certain it would have the desired effects. More due to the current instability than anything else.
Why, Elined, do you consider yourself a secret rebel rouser?
If by rebel-rousing you mean getting things in line for the war to continue and the traitor to fall, then I suppose so.
You want the war to continue?
Going in there covertly is only going to end badly. In order to properly infiltrate the city and deal with Basileus, we will need to get the war to continue, move the conflict down there, and, well, if a city gets caught in the crossfire, a city gets caught in the crossfire.
How callous of you. He does not look like he is displeased by that, though.
It is what needs to be done. What have you been busying yourself with while I've been gone?
Reading, he says cryptically.
Anything interesting?
Do you have a fancy for books bound in human flesh?
She pauses for a moment and thinks back. If I recall correctly, that was shown to the group way far back into the campaign. Chronicle. Or at least talked about.
Did Robert show that to... This was a very long time ago, the last time it was brought up.
That's a very long time ago. I don't know if Robert actually ever showed it to anyone.
It might have been seen in passing just because so many of you traveled with him and his entourage that having this kind of blanketed, covered book just kind of draws notice once in a while.
I remember there being a group meeting about it at some point, but again, it was a real long time ago.
If you remember that, then I'll say you remember that. I do not... Let me see something.
Yeah, I can't say.
If I find my notebook, I'd be able to find out for sure, but that would require me sitting here and flipping through that thing and probably sitting for a good 20.
Yeah, you remember maybe not a flesh-bound tome, but definitely a yellow, kind of beige, off-colored pamphlet, weathered by age, perhaps.
I've heard of books bound in the skin of animals. Humans, not so much.
Then perhaps it would not interest you, but it certainly interests me.
Any book has the potential to be interesting. After all, it is not the cover that makes it interesting, but instead the content.
The contents are what matter. And of course, the reasons why Robert would wish to keep them from us.
Yes, that is a good question. Another good question is why he's up north right now.
There are many questions that need answers. But speaking of Robert, let us consider for a few moments his cadre of followers. I made contact with some of them some weeks ago. They said you turned them away.
Indeed, I did. I did not have the space for them to reside here.
Many of them perished out in the wild. Some by misfortune, others by misdeed. Tell me, how does that make you feel?
It is unfortunate that it is bringing a certain amount of misfortune to one of my coterie members, but I did not have the space for them.
Do not worry about bringing misfortune to Robert. He abandoned them. I just wondered how it made you feel that you were responsible, if indirectly, for some of their deaths.
I have caused a great many deaths. What are a few more?
Oh, Elined, you are a delight. If you had said anything other, I would have doubted our future collaboration. Clinging on to the shreds of one's humanity is just bad for business.
Bad for business and particularly difficult for those involved in warfare. That does, after all, take a good deal of lives.
Indeed it does, and that we must discuss at present. The words you wish me to help you with.
Simple. I need to convince the powers that be in the mortal world, mainly by convincing the mortal commoners that the Duke of York coming back would be the best thing for peace, and anything less is more of a show of weakness in the ruler.
And you wish to convince them of this through words alone.
The right words given to the right performers has the potential to spread like wildfire.
I consider it a challenge worthy of my talents. If you would but do me one small favor in return.
Which would be?
There are a few of Robert's ill-fated who still exist in a small cottage outside the city. I wish to bring them closer to us. There are not too many now to grant hospitality here.
Are you certain bringing them in at this point won't cause trouble?
No, I can't be certain of that. But what trouble could a few mortals cause for us anyway?
How many are there? Exact numbers?
Do I know exact numbers, Fukar?
You weren't given exact numbers. You know that from your brief conversation, it sounds like maybe 5 to 7.
Let us say 7. No more than that.
How many free rooms does she have?
You have a pretty nice manor. You have one room for yourself, Gertrude has a room, and there's a few servant staff that share quarters. So after that, you have, I'm going to say, 3 other guest rooms, and Nicholas is taking one. So 2 completely unoccupied.
Well, Nicholas is taking the basement.
That's true.
Then you have 3.
If I did, they would have to share. But tis possible that they might not be the happiest with me.
They most certainly are not. I sent them a few resources already to help bolster up the hovel in which they find themselves. But I have a feeling they blame you for it.
Certainly they blame me for it.
Funny how even after all of this, they still cling to Robert like a canker. They can see no wrongdoing, and still hope for his return.
I would expect no less.
You can't have blood-bounded them all.
You can't, but honey words here and there can certainly persuade people.
Humans are such interesting creatures. It's been so long since I've been one that I sometimes forget.
For your intentions, do they specifically have to stay here?
No, we can find other more suitable quarters for them.
Then that would be best. I do not want them wrecking the place while I'm away.
Really, my needs for them are selfish. Not only are they in possession of the book which I so desire, which they've only lent me, but if I protect them, then Robert owes me. Since they've been so loyal. You disapprove?
No. No, I do not.
He has not been the best ally to you, surely you realize this.
And I trust that I have not been the best ally to him. Our goals, though sometimes aligning, clash just as much.
Please understand I have no personal reason to hate him.
I would be disappointed if you did lower yourself to hating him over something so trivial.
It is merely difficult for me to understand his game. Never mind, that's a discussion for another time. For now,
For now, there is work to do. Are you quite fine with researching that book on your own, since it is only a temporary...
I would not ask you to help me with such a thing. Although I have strayed far from religion, I can say without any compunction at all that that book is evil. And dare I say it, it has a consciousness of its own.
Now that is intriguing.
It succeeded at invading my thoughts.
Both intriguing and dangerous. Quite the little project on your hands.
I've done much of the legwork already. I have been giving it a bit of a rest. I must seek out expert advice.
Expert in which field?
Things that man was not meant to know.
She gets a small smirk on her face. You realize that I can control shadows, right? That is part of what man is not meant to know.
Then by all means, have a look at the book with me. Tell me what you think.
Alright.
But later, first let's handle this little political coup you have planned.
Yes, let's. Vugar, do you want us to roll? Roll.
What do you want to roll on specifically?
She's trying to make a follow-up poem with advice from Nicholas on psychologically manipulating them better with the words placed in the poem.
So kind of like further rhetoric and propaganda aimed at the low class, the peasants, to garner more support for bringing the Duke back.
But phrased in such a way that it can be played in other locales as well with little additional effort.
I will say that given what you know, given what both of you know about politics, regardless of what you come up with, you will likely only reach the lower class, the working class, serfs and peasants, with whatever you construct, unless you get this into the hands of a noble and get them circulating it. So what you construct will have an impact on the propaganda spread, but it's also important on who this is given to.
All right.
And yes, I will have Nicholas provide his insight into this. Let's see, what makes the most sense? About intelligence, empathy. Standard difficulty. Your net successes will reduce Elined's roll difficulty to a minimum of 4. Alright. 3 successes. So Elined, your difficulty after having advising from Nicholas, who points out some of the finer and more nuanced points of the psychology of the common man that can be manipulated. You'll be at difficulty 4, and I will have you again make an intelligence expression roll. To construct a follow-up rhetoric propaganda poem. Wow, what's your specialties here?
Poetry!
So that's 8, plus your earlier successes of 3, so you're netting 11 successes right now, which is very impactful. This actually, you find, is a great follow-up to the initial piece you sent out. This set up the second one to be even more powerful. And if you want to describe any extra flair to that, you're free to.
Mm-hmm. Well, if I want to get a copy of this into the upper hands, I'm going to have to talk to someone I would rather not speak to. And that would be Bella. But first, I shall take a look at that book.
One final warning. It might leave you changed, are you certain?
You're talking about a book that is sentient, dangerous, and can alter people. That is rather curious, is it not?
Deliciously so.
Then no, my mind will not change on that.
Then come with me into your basement and I'll show you.
She will go along with him.
All right.
He'll take her downstairs to where he's got the book hidden in a floorboard, making sure they're not being observed. He'll lay the book on the table. It's wrapped in blankets still, which he will carefully unwrap to reveal the book beneath.
Elined, you reach the lower level as Nicholas shows you this carefully unwrapped book. And you see it is an old, hardbound tome. There's a faded black covering, bound together by knots of string. It's relatively small. It does have the beige appearance of old pages weathered from time, frayed at the edges and with evidence of burn marks.
Interesting.
I was being a bit dramatic when I said it was bound in skin. But you will see shortly enough that does not matter.
She will go forward and try to use her cloak as a barrier between her hand and the book, as to not trigger the.
All right, so
Try to be
using your cloak
cautious.
to
Yes.
piece through the pages. Okay. Inside, you see it seems to read in Latin. Seems to be journal entries. And as described before, flipping through, it seems to describe this author finding a fragment of a slab of sandstone written in Sanskrit. There are some translations here. This occurred somewhere in the Dead Sea. And it ostensibly records this author's attempt to summon something with its true name. It's not clear what that's in reference to. But apparently the author is successful in drawing forth knowledge and power and then banishing the creature. And that's where it ends.
Can I make a roll to try to figure out the nature of the summoning? Or is that made apparent enough?
Nature, how do you mean?
Exactly what they were trying to summon, or was that made apparent enough?
Give me an intelligence occult roll. Difficulty 7. It's not exactly in your wheelhouse, but you might.
Nope,
Okay.
not my wheelhouse.
Still, one success. This does remind you of stories of old, of the summoning of demons. Or the devil, perhaps.
Demons.
A particular demon, as a matter of fact.
A particular one.
I don't know its name, of course. If I did, as this book states, I would have power over it. But there is a subtext to the last parts of the book, where it is said that the banishment was successful. I think that is a lie. I think a part of that demon still resides in this book.
It is possible.
You need only touch it with your bare hand to feel the things that I have felt. Before I delve deeper, of course. Would you look into the abyss and see the abyss looking back at you?
Well, one cannot give proper advice as to what this is without doing so. She will... Well, with the curiosity of her nature piqued, she will move her hand away from her cloak and slowly put her index finger down on the...
Alright. You slowly place your index finger on the surface of the book, and it gives ever so slightly. It's cool to the touch. It is a strange feeling, as though you're not truly touching paper, but perhaps the brittle flesh of something, feeling the sinewy muscle beneath, like a creature. Although otherwise, besides being very strange to the touch and cool, and getting an overall uncomfortable sensation, you do not see or experience anything else.
It is a bit odd, but it is nothing that I can give any advice on outside of it being a demon.
A bit odd. You're touching it wrong. Try opening it.
She'll just roll her eyes and go to open the book. Though it is already open, if I recall correctly.
You flip through some pages, doing as Nicholas recommends. Again, there is this odd sensation of the pages being so very fine and brittle and yet not like a book. It is difficult for you to appreciate. It is not like any book you've held, in that it does make you a bit unnerved, although you're not entirely sure why.
Haven't felt that feeling in a while.
Ah, so you do feel it. Good.
There's definitely something unnatural about it, and it is trying to make those that come into contact with it nervous. Whether that is its own action or not.
A curious thought just occurred to me.
Do go on.
What is the nature of the black shadows you wield? Is it demonic in origin?
I do not believe so.
What would happen if you touched the book with those shadows, I wonder?
If that is what you want me to test, then I certainly can. Though, do be warned, those shadows are things I can use for attack. It could very well damage the book doing that.
Do you truly think so? That would be something to behold.
Yes. Ripping the book asunder and letting whatever that is free. But very well. She'll try to use her arms of the abyss, pop a blood point for that, and just gently tap the book with one of the tendrils.
Alright, no roll required. The blood will be spent. One of the tendrils emerges from a shadow in the room and reaches out, prodding at the book, and it moves appropriately to the force.
Nothing.
Well, at least we know that much.
She'll dismiss her tendril and turn towards Nicholas. You will likely need an occultist with more knowledge than...
Precisely the expert advice I require. But it didn't hurt to give you the opportunity, now did it?
No, it didn't. And if not for the current task that I have been given, it would make for an interesting research project.
It can't be so easy to find occultists anyway. Although perhaps we could call on an old friend of ours.
Oh, you mean my relative we interrogated, or Robert interrogated, rather?
Indeed.
Question would be where he is. I know where he intended to go. But whether or not he was successful is an entirely different story, as is where he went from there.
You're right, too many what-ifs. But who else then? Certainly not the Magister.
Certainly not my sire. He would not want to see this book.
There are few who would.
My great-uncle could provide advice, but I do not know if he still persists.
Blast it all, this political climate makes everything so difficult.
Oh, and if you haven't heard, travel between cities has been restricted. It has to be approved by the princess now.
What? I had plans to leave London eventually.
I know you did.
On that note, I would say, Elined, you're aware that given that you have the status you do as a Gauntlet Lord, he wouldn't require anything if he traveled with you.
Thankfully for you, she'll hold up her hand with the ring on it. I have a free pass for anyone traveling with me.
That is good news. So long as our paths intersect.
Yes, as long as they do. Now then, I have other things to do, namely trying to find a location more suitable for those what I can only describe as lost puppies. And talking to an individual that I would rather not speak with.
I would offer to accompany you, but I'm sure that wouldn't be any help.
That depends. How much disdain do you hold for Elysium?
The very thought of entering it freezes my blood. Not from fear, mind you, but from disgust.
I never saw a point to entering it myself. Always saw more practical actions is the way to go. But the way I see it, if I want a copy of my poem to end up in the right hands, I need the assistance of Bella, at the very least.
That woman is beyond all patience. Still, if you do wish me to accompany you and leer at her menacingly, I can accomplish that.
I certainly won't stop you if you wish to come along. And with all the Canaanites gathered there might be someone who might be able to help besides her, but
Very well, I shall accompany you.
you do not have to if you wish to follow your research and try to find an occultist. You can certainly do that, but where you'll find one is the question.
I very much doubt it shall be in London anyway. I might as well find something to occupy my time, even if it is a distasteful pursuit.
Alright. Elined will task Gertrude with finding a house for the lost puppies. Well, the ghouls slash herd of Robert. And make an additional copy of the first poem and a copy of the new poem, so she can give that to hopefully give that to Bella when a agreement is reached.
All right. You want Gertrude to find a home in London to buy outright to house Robert's entourage?
For the time being, yes, until Robert returns and she gives them back to him.
All right. Gertrude sets to the task of creating some copies of your new poetry as well as your original, and tells you she'll work quickly to find appropriate accommodations.
Oh, Elined was going to assist with writing that so they can get it done within the night.
All right, that will help speed things along, certainly. Okay. And the scene will fade on the two of you splitting up to your respective tasks. And we'll pause here for a little bit of an early break and come back at the hour.
Okay. I'll switch computers now.
All right. Robert, you awaken the following night and take off a blood point as you rise in the same dark cave. And you see that it appears Albert has restarted the lamp, so there is some light in here. And as you're rising, you can tell there's more motion from the other women, the nuns. Their wimple, I think that's the word, has been removed. Their kind of headscarves, and you can see that they all look emaciated, much like this first woman, but certainly more active than they were the previous night. It seems your vitae has awoken them, at least. Albert sees you stir and moves over closer to you. I'm glad you're awake, Robert. They've been very alive and very eager to leave. They seem to be renewed in strength.
They've been speaking.
Yes.
Good. I trust not much has transpired while I slept.
No, I have done what I can to answer questions to that which I can. And they have been very unsatisfied with my answers.
That is to be expected.
One wished to destroy you while you slept. I persuaded them against it.
And I appreciate that.
He offers a nervous smile. And you can see the remaining group, which now numbers 3, moves over to you. They still walk with some unsteadiness, but it's certainly more than the immobility and crawling you saw the night before. A drastic difference, even with just a single point of vitae. The woman you spoke to on the first night, who was kind of blonde, ragged hair, tied back. We are all ready. If you can take us out, perhaps then we may begin on the road of forgiveness.
Yes.
But there are many questions we wish to have answered if we escape.
Those can come in time. Do you have strength to keep hold on my back while I climb?
I think so.
Let's meet at the exit.
We should make haste. I have never known this devil to be gone for more than a few nights at a time. He always returns, and he's always hungry when he returns.
We shall leave quickly. Robert's going to begin feeding blood into strength and dexterity. 4 points. Split evenly.
Okay, what's that bring you down to after everything?
5.
Okay. So the beast is certainly active. At the provocation of something, it may start to stir more noticeably. So the group of you, 5 in total, 3 frail nuns that are still alive, and Albert following you, make your way to the mouth of the cave. Now, it is late. You wake later than most Canaanites, and so there is not much for lingering light in the sky out in the ocean. Although the ambient light from the moon and the stars provides you far more than you had in that cave. Fortunately, it does seem that you're not held, and your rope seems to still be hanging there.
Robert will gently tug the rope and see if it's still tied firmly.
Yes, it seems it's holding right now.
It is still sturdy. Very well, I will begin the climb. Robert will point to the nearest nun to him. You first.
The nun approaches, looking out to the water and then up to the rope, her mouth kind of agape in surprise and uncertainty, and she looks to you. What do I do?
Grab onto my back and hold for your life.
Her eyes go wide with fear, and she nods. Stepping behind you, she wraps her frail arms around you. It actually reaches around your neck, which you know would not be good if you actually had to breathe. Unfortunately, you do not.
Robert will grab the rope and begin climbing.
Alright, this is going to be much more difficult than getting down. With this woman, as light as she is, it throws off your balance significantly. Makes it very awkward. So I will need a dexterity athletics. Your difficulty here with the aid of the rope is going to be 7. You will need to net, I'm going to say, let's see, let's say 5 successes to make it all the way up.
Just for one?
For 1. You can keep rolling. It's always going to be difficulty 7, though, unless something bad happens.
Yeah, 5 to 6. Nah, okay, alright, we'll
So
go.
extended roll until you meet 5 or something happens.
I'm just like wondering, like maybe I should just like try to climb up and then pull them up from the rope or something.
No, it's totally up to you. You're the expert here.
Okay then. Well, all right. Robert will see how much more difficult it is and decide against that. He'll instruct Albert to tie the rope around the woman after he sends the rope back down. And he'll climb up himself.
He seems unsure, but then nods. Alright, so climbing back up. I'll still make a difficulty 5.
Okay.
Alright, 2 successes. I'm still going to want a net of 5 to make it all the way to the top, though. So you can roll again.
Okay.
Alright, you do it at some difficulty. It takes you a little bit longer. Going up is a little bit harder than going down. But you make it. Your hand reaches the crest of the ledge and you pull yourself up.
Robert will heighten his senses and check for any signs of fraying on the rope.
Sure, give me a perception alertness. Well, actually, we'll go investigation. Difficulty 7 before your aspects. Four successes. Alright. The rope is in fairly good condition, although you do see just the edges of the small fibers fraying. Overall, it still looks sturdy. Probably could support the weight of a woman, but if you are just going to be pulling them up, maybe it will last, maybe not. For one of them, for all of them, you don't have a lot of experience in this, but you do know just from common sense, pulling them up like cargo will put much more strain on this rope than trying to carry them. Although carrying them up yourself is far more awkward and technically challenging than pulling them up. So there are difficulties either way.
Okay, well, he'll start pulling them up, convinced that the rope will at least last for this.
Okay. You give it a few minutes until there's kind of a tug a couple times, a sign from Albert, and you take that to mean that it's ready, and you start pulling. So now this is going to be strength athletics. The difficulty here will be I'm going to say it's 7. And again, net 5 successes.
7 still? Okay.
Unless you think it should be lower for some reason.
I think pulling the rope would be easier than climbing with someone on your back. That's just me.
I think it's going to be technically a lot easier. So in one case you'd be doing like dexterity athletics, whereas this is more of a brawn based. Probably not difficulty 7. I'd probably go difficulty 6.
That's fair. Oh well.
Okay.
That is 4 successes.
What's your specialty?
Nothing in strength or athletics.
Oh, did you spend a willpower?
No, that was a difficulty 7 check. That was
Oh, I see what you did. I see. Yep, 4 successes. Okay. So the first woman you can see is starting to come into view as you pull her up, one hand over another. And again, thanks to your imbued strength, it's more feasible, but they're still heavy. You're still lifting bodies using nothing but a single rope. There's no pulley systems to reduce the amount of work to be done here. So it's brute strength. Need one more success and she'll be up. You can see her. She's maybe less than 100 feet away now. Alright, that's enough. So the first woman you pull up, this kind of short blonde-haired nun, she kind of almost falls to the ground as she makes her way up and crawls as she reaches the edge. She looks to you with surprise and uncertainty.
Robert will help her up and tell her to wait while she gets the others up as well, and he'll send the rope back down.
All right. So again, you get the sign that it seems like the nuns are ready, or one is, and you start pulling. So go ahead and roll again. Alright, no successes, but it's not a botch yet, so you're finding there's a little bit more difficult. Maybe she's stuck on something, maybe she's moving awkwardly. You can tell you're not gaining the distance, but you still have a taut rope, so she's still connected there. You can keep trying.
Yeah, I'll keep trying.
Alright, one success, start to make progress.
Robert's starting to strain more for some reason.
Yeah, this woman's being especially difficult to bring up. Moving bodies with a single rope is not as easy as you thought it would be.
Robert persists.
Alright, you make a lot more progress. After whatever was happening down there is done, you start moving her up a lot more quickly. The second nun appears over the ledge. A red head with freckles. I'm sorry. I did not like being pulled. I fear I made it more difficult.
If only the last could know to remain still.
She kind of
Robert's
winces as she feels at the bindings where the ropes were pulling at her.
Robert will send the rope down again.
Alright. Let's go ahead and keep rolling.
Yeah.
No one's died yet. Alright, 3 successes.
Really good.
1 success. Just need 1 more. You can tell this woman's almost made it to the top. Okay. You do it. The last of the nuns is in much more concern and panic as she makes it up. You can see there's tears going down her eyes as she grips at the side of the ledge and pulls herself, kind of panting from the pain of being pulled up like luggage. The 3 of them kind of huddle together for support.
Albert would breathe a sigh of relief if he still had breath. He'll examine the rope again.
It still looks like it's intact right now. Despite everything, it's pretty sturdy rope.
I'll send it down again to Albert.
Alright. Are you going to try and pull him up too?
I was kind of hoping that he'll just climb up. But if he feels like tugs, he'll know that he should have told him to climb up himself. But we'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens. He seems to have a much easier time getting up than the nuns do, and he quickly makes his way up. Oh, we might have done this after all, Robert.
Thankfully.
What are we going to do with him now?
Much as it pains me, I'll have to make the trip with them tired back to the nearest village.
But didn't you say the treasure's right here?
Yes.
We're
And the
going to
time it
leave.
takes to travel.
Without the treasure.
Robert's going to measure the time and look at the obstacle for climbing the the rock.
The sea stack that's quite a distance out from you looks more difficult to climb up than this cliff hedge or cliff ledge. Just on a cursory assessment.
We'll be back. It's not like the treasure will disappear and someone else climbs up there.
As you say. Cursed nuns. And he sets about getting the rope unwoven from the rock side. What will Robert do next?
He'll lead the merry band back to the friendly camp.
All right. You begin leading this group, the nuns and Albert, back in the direction of the camp. And again, this leader, the blonde woman, comes up to you. Where are we going now? Where are you leading us?
To a warm place where you can get food and water.
The last time you led us anywhere, we were brought to hell itself. Why should we trust you now? To make some other trade?
How can you say that after I've had no clue you were down there, and now I've struggled to get you back up to safety, rather than leave you to your fate?
You are no man of God, I know that. You serve yourself. Perhaps you see us as a bargaining chip of some kind. To some other devil.
Speak your questions, since they are burning your mind so clearly.
And she stops walking beside you, and the nuns kind of take notice, and Albert takes notice as she kind of stops the group. Convince us now that you will not lead us to another devil. That you are not the devil himself.
Then you have my word, I will not lead you into the hands of another devil. We are headed to a camp of pagans, though. If that'll be fine with you.
Make a charisma empathy roll, difficulty 8. Two successes. It takes her a long time to respond before you can see that she's almost wincing from sadness. I cannot imagine what hell we came from, but now you left us to... At least if we can see the sky, it surely would be better. Take us to these pagans, then.
We'll get you home eventually. Do not worry. But we need to get supplies for the trip. It is a decent travel. It wouldn't be good to have you all go as tired as you are.
She nods once, still with sorrow and rage in her face, and continues to follow on, bundling the cloak about her. It seems that the nuns will follow you for now.
Alright, he's leading them back to the camp.
Alright. No roll necessary, it's just a matter of walking. It does take you a good portion of the night, just as you recall, although a bit faster now that you become more familiar with the terrain and the path. You do return to the pagan camp, and this time with open arms and with a warm welcome from the tribe. What do you explain or ask of them?
The tribesmen or the nuns?
To the tribe.
I'm sure they'll have questions for where they came from, but Uh, how many words did he learn from them?
You learned enough to get by. You can't speak very complicated conversations, but enough to get basic ideas across.
I'll just say he saved them from a monster. I'm sure he at least knows how to say that. Or from the cave. And just request some time to recover for their whole group.
Alright. I'm basically treating this as you having the lingua franca merit, but just for this one dialect.
Okay.
They agree to this. You're considered a friend of this camp. The nuns are certainly uncertain of the company. Although they're treated well enough, they mostly keep to themselves. They're mostly looked at with pity by these tribespeople. They eat hungrily at whatever they're given, and are quick to sleep. How long will you stay there?
Robert himself needs to hunt again. Much as he hates it, he's going to have to go for animals lest he risks butchering the tribe. So while the nuns are sleeping, he'll have Albert keep watch again, and he'll try to find sustenance outside.
Alright. To hunt the wild outside, give me a wits survival. I'll give you difficulty 7. Alright. 2 successes. I will say you're able to get 2 blood points back from hunting otters and hares. And again, it's a terrible taste. You have to really work through it to get it down. But at this point, the vitae is enough to sate the beast that it doesn't care enough. It's small game, it's not very nourishing, but it's something.
It's something. How much time is left in the night?
I'll say that was an hour's worth of effort. You have a couple hours left since you were a little bit more efficient getting back. So you could probably try one more time safely.
He's probably past the point of frenzying right now. Yeah?
Would you be at 6 or 7 now?
7.
Probably. Any lower and something like an exposed wound might give you notice, but you're
What if he
getting
started
better.
casually feeding from people in the village?
I would say that given you've had nothing to really feed on except for animals the last couple nights, the taste of human blood would be more powerful in its pull than usual.
Right, if that's how Robert feels, he'll spend another hour looking for animals, because he definitely doesn't want to lose control.
Okay. So yeah, same. Difficulty is going to be a little bit higher since you're continuing the same... You're hunting the same area, basically, for more of the same game. So difficulty 8 now. Three successes. Wow. So you start to get the hang of it and scare up more game. 3 more blood points worth of small animals, otters. Also, you do find a sea lion somewhere in there. It's a small one, but
Okay.
lost baby sea lion.
Oh no.
Yeah. But you're a monster. You don't care.
That's right. Give me that blood. How much blood?
3 more on top of what you had.
All right. He's not gonna bring back a feast this time, but enough for at least to like replenish the larder of these tribesmen for their hospitality.
Yeah, you bring back a baby sea lion, a hare, another couple otters, and given that this group of pagans survives off the game of the land, they're definitely grateful. This is more than enough payment for putting up these Christians for a couple nights. So all seems to be well at this Norwegian camp. What's Robert's overall goals now?
Well, to not get too far off track, he's going to teach the nuns a few words so they can at least talk to the tribesmen, and he's going to tell them they're going to be there for at least another, I don't know, maybe 3 nights or so. The nuns themselves, him and Albert, have to go back to the cave they were at. Maybe they can find their foe. He's pretty much telling them that if they can make it back themselves, they can, but he doesn't recommend it to wait for them. Doesn't want to be like too forceful. But he's going to at least get another rope because he has a feeling the other one was really well used. And head back over with Albert with fresh supplies to feed Albert. And begin the climb of the sea stack.
Alright, so you're going to leave the nuns here for a few nights and return to the sea stack?
Yep.
Okay. The nuns certainly don't feel like they have much of a choice, given that they're at the mercy of you and these pagans. So they don't exactly fight you on this. You can see there's a glimmer of hope and strength returning to them, just being out of the cave at least. Albert seems to be doing pretty well. He seems to be glad that even though you had to sidetrack from getting this treasure, you saved some nuns. Surely that's got to score some points with God.
Yeah. Something like that.
And it's not, I'll say it's another night that you take traveling back to the sea stack. And you're again looking at the same thing you were looking at 2 nights ago, before you knew anything about the nuns.
As soon as it's safe from dawn, he'll begin preparations for climbing.
Alright, so you want to stay in the cave one more night?
Yeah, he doesn't want to get caught in the sun on the sea stack. Unless, does he think it's like, because they went back faster than when they first went out, does he feel like there's enough time to climb it?
There's a few hours of night on the night you return to the sea stack. You have gotten a bit more efficient in the trail now.
He'll give it a shot. Why not? He wants to get this over with.
Okay. How do you reach the top with Albert?
Well, he's going to climb up himself. And with the rope on him, like I guess he's going to try and find something similar to what they had before. I guess he needs to take up the ritual supplies as well.
It's really just a sword in the skull otherwise.
Wasn't there like supposed to be a bowl?
No, you just need fresh blood.
Okay. All right then. He's just going to make the climb then.
Alright. And do you tell Albert to wait behind or try to climb with you?
He's going to tell him to wait. He'll drop the rope after he makes it up for Albert to climb.
Alright, so just to paint you a clearer picture, the sea stack comes straight out of the ocean. There's no, like, very nice connection, like, to the land. And the tides do make it fairly difficult even to reach the base, which is little concern to you, but more concern to people who bleed and have organs.
I see.
Like, have you ever been at the beach and you've seen the water crashing against the rocks?
Alright, so it's decently far out. Of course, there's no time to build a bridge.
It's not impossible for him to get over to it, but certainly dangerous.
Hmm. Alright, well, if Albert's willing to give it a shot, they'll both climb up together.
Alright. And I would say with new rope, you could make the climb and then drop the rope down. That'd make it, I mean, getting to the base will be difficult for him, but getting up might be easier.
Okay. And I'll stay close to him as they're getting up to the base at least. Have him come along and just have him wait once they reach the base for him to send the rope down.
Alright. I'll forgo the rolls getting down the cliffside since the two of you are pretty experienced on this now. Probably just be a matter of time and patience. So the real trick is getting to the actual sea stack and then making the climb up. So you're kind of at this mouth of the cave like you were before. You have this rope. And it's, like I said, about 30 feet drop down to the actual water. And then about 200 feet of going out into the water until you reach the sea stack. That's fighting against the tide.
Again, he'll stay close to Albert, so if anyone slips, like, they can at least help each other.
Alright. So just reaching the base, give me a dexterity athletics. Standard difficulty for you. It's going to be harder for Albert.
Okay.
Alright. This is difficult enough for you as you reach the base of the water and the tide immediately starts throwing you back. But you can tell Albert is having a very difficult time even just staying above water as the tide keeps throwing him back and threatens to hit him against the stone. He's trying to stay above water, but he's not making any forward progress.
Robert is going to use more blood to enhance his abilities and try to help Albert along more this time and keep his own balance.
All right.
Now that'd be a dex or strength to keep him.
I will let you make a single roll for both of you at a higher difficulty, so you can make the same roll but difficulty 7 now.
Okay.
To kind of help keep him afloat and moving forward. Like a little ferry. Any specialties here?
Nope.
Alright, you find it's also difficult trying to move him. This is not easy. It's the middle of the night. You're fighting against the tide of the water throwing you back. I'll let you try again, though. You haven't botched or anything.
Okay. Increase difficulty, anything like that?
Not right now. You just haven't made any forward progress.
So it's extended roll then? Okay.
Wow. 5 successes. Okay. You reach the peak of the crest of one of these waves and then make a lot of movement out into the water. You clear virtually all of the distance with your supernatural strength and dexterity pumping through you, moving preternaturally quickly, even as you help basically tow Albert along with you. It's a phenomenal, almost obviously supernatural feat. But you manage to reach it. You reach the base of the sea stack and cling to one of the rocks as the water, which is frigid but not really bothering you, is thrashing here and about. You can hear Albert over the crashing of the waves. Are we going to survive this?
We must.
At this point, he's soaked thoroughly, and his hair is in his eyes, and you can see the fear in him as he grasps to the side of the rock wall, trembling from the cold and the freezing water. How are we going to climb this?
I'll go ahead. The rocks will be slippery, I'm sure. I'll send the rope down for you.
He nods hurriedly, obviously cold, trying to grip himself closer to the rock and pull himself up. Now you must make the climb.
Alright. What do I need?
It's going to be Dexterity Athletics, difficulty 8. You'll need 5 successes.
Difficulty 8. Oof. Oof. Oh no. Shit. I use the willpower.
What's your willpower at?
2.
You can.
Alright.
Wow. No specialties?
Not in this case.
Alright, still 3 successes. Through the blood in your muscles and sheer force of will, you make it almost all the way to the top of this sea stack. And you can tell the rock is more jagged and wet and unforgiving. It's almost as though the sea stack itself wishes for you to fail. You make it up. Almost all the way. Give me one more roll. Just need 2 more successes. Not a botch, barely. It's a lot of 1. That's 5 ones. Wow. You reach kind of a ledge, a peak I should say a lip of the sea stack. It's very difficult to get over. Rock climbing is very treacherous here. You're struggling to find any good footholds. But you haven't made any missteps yet. You're just not able to advance yet. So I'll let you try again.
Trying again.
You haven't botched yet. You narrowly haven't botched. Alright, 2 successes. That's all you need. You finally crest the top of this sea stack. You reach the top, and the wind is roaring past you. The water hitting your face. You've reached the top, and now you just need Albert.
Robert can't help but take a moment to revel in making it to the top, but he'll quickly seek something to secure the rope and send it back down to Albert.
All right. You throw the rope down, and you can feel the tug. Are you going to try and pull him up or use that to assist him, or what do you want to do here?
If he thinks that his pulling will be of assist, he'll do it, but if he thinks he'll be better off climbing on his own and not creating extra movement, he'll just let him climb up.
All right, but you're holding onto the rope?
Yeah.
Okay.
After it's been secured, yeah.
There's very little to secure it up here. To give you a description, the top is close to flat, but not quite flat, kind of mesa. It crests up, going in the direction of the ocean. It's basically just rock with moss grown over onto it. There is kind of an area near the center where it seems to be a little bit more circular and flat and forgiving, but there's very little up here.
Robert will look around. Does he see anything that would be useful?
Perception survival, standard difficulty. You do see something at the very edge of the sea stack, at the western end of it. You could maybe tie it off at the end there.
Robert will move to do that.
Alright. Soon enough, you can tell Albert is trying to make the climb. I'll lower difficulty for him by 1 since you're helping. Alright, he's obviously struggling. He hasn't fallen yet, but looking down you can see he's not making as much progress. Starts to make a little bit of progress. 1 success. Slowly but surely. Alright, 4 successes. He's almost at the top. Are you still just watching him?
He'll go to the edge and give him a hand up if he gets close, and help pull him up, just to make it whatever easier he can.
Okay. It's very slow and very arduous for him. But he finally reaches, and his hand reaches up and grasps your forearm, and you pull him up. And the wind and the rain batters him, and you can tell he's shivering and he's stiff, and his muscles aren't as limber as yours. You can tell the cold has definitely impacted him more than you. You think it's perhaps only because of the vitae within him that he was even able to do this. Robert, where's the treasure?
It's over in the center.
You found it? He moves past you, stiffly.
Robert will begin slowly walking over toward the center.
There's a circle, imperfect circle of about 5 feet in diameter of kind of stone where the moss hasn't really grown. Is it here? Is it buried?
It is buried. But there is another way to unearth it.
It's kind of like pressing his hands over the stony dirt. How on earth are we going to dig through this?
Robert examines it closely. Is there like a place that looks like blood needs to be poured in or something of that nature?
No, the ritual, as you were told, was basically to pour blood over the top of the sea stack and paint runic symbols in the blood, and then to intone the chant while holding the skull in the cold steel.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, Robert is not in a mood for starting an argument over this, so he's going to use entrance. And have Albert willingly offer some blood for him to go to the next step. I'll just request it.
You're going to use entrance to request that Albert give up blood?
Yeah, doesn't have to be a lot. It just needs enough to draw the symbols.
Alright. Give me an appearance empathy. Your difficulty here will be 3. Three successes. Be entranced for a week. He suddenly kind of turns to you and looks. He stops shivering. Yes, whatever you need. At once.
And Robert will get all the things he was told ready, and while Albert is getting the blood he needs.
He takes out a dagger and cuts at the palm of his hand. Perhaps it will soften the soil. You are right.
Yes.
And he eagerly cuts at his palm and lets it fall into the earth.
Don't cut too deeply. Only need a bit, as Robert begins making patterns with the blood.
You start to paint these runic symbols as you were described them and shown them, until there is a kind of circular pattern.
The next step should be to hold the skull and cold steel or iron in hand and begin chanting. Yes?
Yes, the rune you carve in this circle doesn't really make a lot of sense. It all seems to originate from this single point with a cross that goes in all four directions and then a cross that bisects it. So there's like these 8 lines coming out, and each of those 8 lines has smaller symbols at the end of them. But of course, Albert doesn't question any of this. He continues to let a slow bleed into the pool so that you can use it. And you withdraw the skull and the iron short sword. And you may begin chanting.
So Robert will begin chanting. He'll at least make a decent performance of it. He doesn't expect anyone else to be hearing it other than Albert. Well, hopefully the Einherjar is also hearing, but he'll begin chanting. From the chaos of the Gunnan Agap, I invoke you, Deathless One. Denied from Valhalla, I invoke you, Sword of Odin. By the Volknut, I invoke you, Einherjar. Arise and nourish yourselves on the heart's blood of the forfeit.
You make this chant as Albert is standing by, holding the skull in one hand, the sword in the other. And as you finish, the winds around you seem to move in a cyclone. You no longer feel it on your cheek, brushing by you from the sea, but instead they seem to move around the sea stack. The sea below smashes against the rocks, and there's a stir beneath your feet as the rock and dirt move. And Albert almost falls backwards as he realizes this mound of earth is giving way for something.
Robert's eyes are wide as he takes in this. He's never really experienced magic firsthand.
The entire sea stack seems to tremble as a figure emerges from within. What you emerges is, you think a man, tall but slim, eyes darkened around their corners, his entire body covered in this dirt and stone and pebbles which fall off of him. His eyes are feral appearing, long, unkept hair, covered head to toe in this dirt.
Robert instantly takes a submissive body posture and he'll wait for this being to say something.
There's a flicker of light from above, a flash of lightning, showing that parts of his face have been covered by the blood. His ears are folded unnaturally. There are actually some hairy whiskers bristling about his face. His eyes snap to you as you are in this submissive pose, and Albert has fallen backwards some ways away. Before you even realize what's happened, his hand is around your throat, and he's raising you up. Raising you up with Herculean strength. Who are you to wake me from mine torpor, infant? Speak, lest I give your ashes to the waves.
I am known as Robert de Vere. I have called you to seek vengeance on the slayer of Canute.
You can see his fangs are bared as he looks at you. He looks down at your hands. You bear the skull and sword of a rightful of Volknot, and invoke the name of Canute.
The one that carries the Volknot is Ragna. Canute's child.
He lets you go, letting you fall to the ground.
Robert will steady himself after being dropped.
Albert is looking in awe and fear. This man reaches down and takes a handful of the bloodied stained dirt. And then raising his hand, it tightens into a fist and opens, letting the blood-stained dust carry away in the air. Yes. The sigil of the Volknot calls to me. A slain warrior denied from Valhalla, trapped in the heart of the blood of his slayer. I can feel Canute in the wind. You do not speak falseness. His eyes suddenly burst open from being shut. He looks over to Albert. A sacrifice. I will need more. And Albert looks to you with fear. What is happening, Robert?
Fuck. Robert will look at Albert and quickly turn back to the Einherjar. How many more do you need? There are plenty of villages in the area.
Tell me, whelp, does the village of Kirkwall still stand?
That it does.
Good. Then it will nourish me. And he takes slow steps forward towards Albert, who is backed up to the edge of the sea stack. Looking to you, hopeful, in terror.
Robert didn't really want, like, he kind of suspected the sacrifice would mean something would be eaten, but kind of hoped he could get past that by just using a bit of blood. But he, in the face of such a powerful vampire, he's not going to. I mean, damn. He's going to at least try to convince to eat someone else, as this one has been very useful to him.
All right, you see the man reaching down towards Albert. What do you say to him?
Oh, he's probably near frenzy. Robert will say, wait, if you would, please. Do not harm that one. Surely more food or vitae can be secured elsewhere.
The man continues in his motion as he lifts up Albert to his feet. It was this mortal's blood which invoked my rising.
I understand then.
Do not test the gods in these things. And with that, his mouth distends briefly as his fangs open, and his mouth comes down viciously on the neck of Albert, who yells. This is not the kiss. This is a carnivore biting in to prey. The scream is almost as loud as the wind and the waves. The man feeds only for a few seconds, savagely drawing the vitae out of Albert and pulling back, blood staining his beard. You have done your part, Harold. I will do the rest.
So be it.
One more thing, whelp. Stay out of my way. He looks at you with wide eyes before he crouches briefly, and his legs extend, pressing him away from the sea stack as he goes soaring back towards the coast, clearing the distance you swam, and disappearing into the night.
How much damage was done to Albert?
Albert has his throat ripped out and is pale in the face. His eyes look off into the crests of the tides lifelessly.
Robert will pick his body up, and try to make it down the rope back to the cave to take shelter for the day.
All right. No roll required. I'm just going to assume you take your time getting down, pulling yourself down this rope. You're imbued with enough strength and dexterity to take the time you need. And so, slowly, you return down. Of course, you have no fear of the cold of the water or drowning, and so, indeed, it is just a matter of time until you reach the cave, now that you have no fear of damaging a mortal body. And you reach this empty cave that looks out into the ocean with Albert's pale eviscerated body. What's going through Robert's mind now that the Einherjar has been unleashed and his traveling companion has been spent as planned all along?
Robert he feels that a relief that he suspects Ragna will face justice after this, although now it dwells on his mind that Kirkwall will be destroyed. And then his thoughts drift to Albert didn't really deserve that fate. And after all he's been through, he's actually been very accomplished. He's actually considering embracing him.
All right. You know that with your years of wisdom, you know that the embrace must take place almost immediately after being exsanguinated. Wait too long and his death will be certain.
Okay. Alright, so yeah, he'll take him to the cave and then start going through that process. Why not?
Alright. Robert embraces Albert Desjardins. Having already been exsanguinated, he needs only be fed your vitae. And so with the sacrifice of a point of vitae, you feed this to him, you wait. You wait almost half an hour. You think it's not going to work. You've never done this before, I don't believe.
You are correct in that.
You're not sure what to expect, and you think about making plans to return to the village, and you look over at Albert and see that his eyes snap open. And the scene will fade, cutting at that as we transition away from the cave and return to our other protagonists. As meanwhile, Nicholas and Elined, the two of you have plans, political plans, occult plans. As I recall, Elined, you meant to go to Elysium to enlist the help of Bella Matea to reach the upper crust of society to further your propaganda.
Yep.
And Nicholas in tow to assist, or at least witness.
Yep.
All right. Just making some edits here. Alright. The two of you arrive in Elysium. You see many of the faces you commonly do. Simone Deschamps, oddly enough, is missing, but you do see the Bruja Primogen, Alexander Hitchcock. He seems to be speaking to a group of neonates to some purpose. Many of the Ventrue you often see are present, including the new Seneschal, Mordecai, and, of course, Bella's group of sycophants, as well as Helen, have their own entourage. What do you do?
She's not about to go socialize with other people. How many people are sitting over at Bella's table?
A good number, which is not uncommon. She, at any time, has many neonates hoping to gain favor or be able to say that Bella Matea thought that my quip was witty. Anything to gain some of her attention, even for a moment. So a small crowd around her.
She will head over to her table and see how many of them scatter upon seeing a gauntlet.
About half of them dismiss themselves at your approach. And the sudden flurry of movement draws her attention. I was wondering. I knew it was someone. To what do I owe the pleasure?
I'm afraid it's more business than pleasure.
My dear, you make the mistake of thinking the two cannot be mixed.
Sorry, what was that? My internet kinda spazzed.
You make the mistake of assuming the two cannot be mixed.
I'm sorry, I just laughed too much at the drawing.
I just saw it.
I could tell I'm sleep deprived when I start laughing at things like that.
Nicholas is staying quietly behind Elined, looking severe as always.
I suppose they could. Though it is a matter I would like to discuss with you without a crowd, if possible.
Oh, my favorite kinds of talks. You'll have to excuse me, my dears. She rises from her day lounge and begins stepping away from her crowd. Helen the Nosferatu looks somewhat displeased at the sight of the two of you. And Bella steps over to the side of Elysium, where these alcoves, these small lounges, for more private discussions occur, as small fountains of water create ambient white noise.
She will go over there with her.
Bella sits
Now
down
then.
and kind of leans back, looking very relaxed, crossing her legs, and waits.
Now then, as a socialite, I assume you have ties to the more elite mortals, do you know?
Oh yes, my dear, you should see the top-notch fishmongers. They have some of the finest cod you'll ever find.
I was more speaking in the realm of noble courts.
I know what you're speaking of. Get to the point.
I need something delivered to one of their performers.
She kind of tilts her head down expectantly, waiting.
Well, she holds up a envelope that has a sealed envelope that has the poems folded inside. It is a bit of poetry for them to perform. More propaganda-leaning poetry, but poetry nonetheless.
Good on you for at least calling it what it is. Many come to me with such requests with much more flowery language. She handles the envelope and starts reading it over after opening it.
Well, we both have very important things to deal with. I simply did not wish to waste your time.
You can see her eyes going back and forth, looking over the words. I caught wind of similar words being distributed.
Indeed, the first poem is included in there as well. That is the one I have distributed to the lower class.
She sets the paper down and looks at you. And what interest does a gauntlet lord in having the Duke more disposed to return?
It makes my job significantly easier.
Well, it makes my job significantly easier when I know what is happening.
You have heard about Sebastian's betrayal, have you not?
All the city has by now.
It is moving the pieces into place so that individual can be taken down.
What pieces do you hope to move into place for Norwick?
Hopefully troops.
The Duke's troops.
Perhaps I also have some mercenaries as well.
Ostensibly, there's peace right now. Are you seeking to change that, then?
It is the best way to deal with the problem.
The last I heard, Norwick had no allegiance either to the Lancasters or the Yorkists. How do you intend to involve the Duke's men? and bring them to this Basileus.
She pauses at the mention of Basileus' name. She specifically did not mention Basileus. Seems you are rather well informed.
It is my role, after all.
Simple. There are a few minor houses there that are loyal to the opposing side, and, well, given how easily angered Bob Bruce is, I do not see much difficulty in kiting him down.
So you hope for this letter to stir up some discord, perhaps?
To allow the Duke to return for the sake of peace, and then that will begin phase 2.
She smiles faintly. It isn't a bad plan. It just wouldn't be mine.
So, now we get to the main part of the discussion. What do you want from doing this?
She smiles more brightly at that. I would settle for a minor boon, to see that this gets to the right places and the right people. Ones that might actually do something with it.
Very well.
And here I thought that might be difficult. You're far more charming to do business with than I thought.
I will take that as a compliment.
And what of you? And she looks over to Nicholas. How do you fit into all of this? Microphone? I'm not hearing you. while we wait for Nicholas's response, what are Elined's plans after this exchange?
After this exchange, should everything go over swimmingly, she'll check in on the situation with finding a house for the displaced individuals and see what she can do about remedying the problem with the fort.
Remedying the problem with the what?
The fort. The one that lost funding halfway through.
Oh, the fort, the castle.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm still going to give Nicholas a chance to respond, but we can also address that while we wait for him.
Alrighty.
In a broad overview, you hear back from Gertrude that she was able to find a large tenement building that would probably house the remaining 7. It's not the nicest building, but it has the space. It's definitely affordable with your resources. You could buy it outright and not really be impacted that significantly. And you could maybe even rent it out if you fix it up a bit later.
Alright, she'll do that then.
So, ostensibly, Robert's entourage may have been handled. And in regards to looking into this incomplete castle, I'll take a little bit of extra time, but after, let's say, a couple nights of sending messengers and asking for inquiries of updates, you find out approximately how much remains to be funded to finish the castle. It's about 75% funded and just about complete. So it's really just this last quarter. And you could probably fund that at the same time as buying this tenement building, but any other large purchases would start to strain your resources.
Then she will put that on hold. She can use this tenant building as an income property, so getting that fixed up and going into renting is going to be a decent source of income.
But you can't.
Not the best source.
You can't rent it while it's being used.
I know I can't rent it. It's more preparing it for it to be rented.
Oh, I see.
That way I can get a extra flow of money coming in, since things seem like they might be tight if she does everything at once.
Yeah, it could start to get tight, so you're going to hold off on funding the castle right now?
Yes.
Okay. But maybe put some extra staff and coin into repairs and upkeep, maintenance of this tenement building?
Yes.
Roger. Alright, that's definitely within your capacity. So that will be an ongoing effort, and Bella will explain to you before you depart from this exchange that she will see that this poetry, this propaganda, gets to the right people, but that to see the full effects of this reaching the nobles and the nobles reaching people like the counselors surrounding the king could take about a month just for everything to filter through. But probably about a month from now, you might start to hear, or there might be some changes on the way. Whether or not that's going to be visible or known to the low class or known to the public is up for debate, but she is fairly confident that about a month is required, and then it will start to take effect. What else are Elined's plans going forward? Not just for like the next few nights, but maybe for the next month or two. You're not sure.
Overseeing the training of the mercenary and furthering her own training.
Alright, you'll have to remind me which mercenary group do you want to train?
The ones that are supposed to be residing in that castle.
Oh. Technically, they're not mercenaries. They're... I have to go back. I'm pretty sure the 45 men Judith had were from barons and counts, although I might have to double check my notes on that. But if that's the group you're referring to, that's fine. So overseeing their training and making sure they don't get too lax and drunk again?
Exactly.
Okay. So general maintenance of troops and training yourself. Training yourself more in swordplay. You learn to, learn to ride a
Less
horse.
less swordplay, more physical training.
Like brawling or conditioning.
More an excuse to raise my stamina.
Okay. That's fine. Alright, that's good to know. That'll definitely keep you busy for a couple months. And would like to get Nicholas back just so we can give him a chance to finish at least his exchange with Bella.
I might be here. Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you.
I was just listening to her part of it.
Yeah, I was just wrapping up what Elined's plans were going forward, looking further out. But to get back into scene, Bella kind of finished up her negotiation with Elined, explaining what to expect with this propaganda, and then she turns to you. And what of you? What do you get out of all this? What part do you play?
The part of provocateur, I suppose.
Is this your advisor? She looks to you, Elined.
In which sense?
In the sense that he says things, and you do things because of what he says.
Nothing so trite. You will let Elined answer for herself.
No.
I had never heard your name very much before these recent nights, Nicholas Ridley, and yet it seems you walk among very esteemed company. What do you attribute that to?
Knowing the right place to be at the right time, I suppose. I'm like a worm that burrows into your brain.
How charming. Well, see that you don't burrow too far from your companion here, lest you may find yourself outside the city and without appropriate means to return.
Do not think I cannot recognize a threat when I hear one.
I threaten nothing. I comment only on the difference in status that you clearly have.
You know nothing about me or my status. You only have a name, nothing else. There would have to be something about me to learn for you to learn it. And even your spies aren't that good.
Perhaps all I have is a name at this time. But you should be careful with how you speak to people in this city with status such as that of Elined or myself.
Elined is a strong enough woman she can think for herself. You, I don't know what you are.
Well, then let me paint a very clear picture. Ambrose may be Prince of London, but this is my city. I feel its lifeblood. If you think you can treat me with such disrespect, and see nothing for it, you may come to regret that.
Disrespect, my dear woman. You misjudge me.
At least your Cassandra cousin Simone has the decency to keep quiet. Better to be thought a fool than to open one's mouth, no?
If you say so, my lady.
I grow weary of this conversation, and our exchange seems to be done. You should have what you need in a month's time, my dear. And she looks to Elined, smiling more pleasantly.
She'll return the smile, though. Of course. Thank you for your service.
Thank you. And she bats her eyelashes once as she rises from the small booth you have and returns to Elysium, leaving the two of you alone.
After Bella returns to her business, she'll turn back to Nicholas and completely drop that happy facade.
She's completely insufferable.
But doing business with her was the best way to get things done.
Well, she's got one thing right anyway. I don't plan to stay in London for long. If only to avoid her simpering hordes.
True, in the Elysiums I've been to, I have not seen crowds flock to someone like they do. And she's making her way to leave.
Alright. You pass through Elysium. Many eyes fall upon the two of you. Interest, gossip, hearsay, it all passes along like moving through a forest. And soon enough, you're away from their whispering voices, their suggestions, comments. And return to London. And at that, the scene will fade, and I think we will close it here and pick it up again next session.